And we are live, and I've got special guests, so I'm not going to beat around the bush and do, any nonsense. I'm going to get them on right away, and we are going to get chatting. I have the great pleasure of welcoming two fellow Canadians who are doing it. They're making toys. So without further ado, from Delta-17, I've got Ken and Steve. What's going on, guys?
Hey, Adam, how you do?
I'm great, man. I'm excited to talk about a 3 3/4 inch military line, which is crazy to think in 2024. But the fact that it's Canadian based as well, and then on top of that, the fact that there's, you're one of many is also like there's all kinds of layers of crazy for how this is all sort of happening right now. But what's going on with you guys? Any news? Anything coming up?
So
Ken?
we just finished talking Delta-17 on Wilhelm. We're going to talk a little bit for part of Brickstream. Can I just hijack this and go into the pro wrestling stuff, or would I get kicked off, banned for
Only
good for life?
Only if you have the belt on hand right now. You're not allowed to go and get it.
It's a high order.
Yes, you don't. So let's move on.
I got this. I got this. Okay.
Good enough.
I failed. All right.
I got mine too.
Nice.
No, they're great in hand. I mean, you guys have done a fantastic job.
Thank you.
Again, it's bonkers. It's crazy to me that some crazy Canadians had the idea that maybe it's a good idea to do something that nobody's been doing for a long time. Let's get right into it. When did you have this crazy idea, Steve?
Well, I was about to purchase a O-ring line. I can't say which one it was or whatever. A smaller line that does sort of recolorings and different things. And so my goal as I was getting ready to purchase this was to make teams and themes. And so I did a lot of development hardcore for about 2 or 3 months. But my goal in the meantime was to get away from recoloring G.I. Joes and starting new figures. So the guy who was going to sell me the line, he decided not to. I was like, oh, okay. So it took me about a week where I was like, oh, crap, what am I going to do? Right. And I just thought, well, what's the goal of this line was to introduce new figures and to phase out these repaints. Right. Why don't I just jump to point B? Right. Is it possible? And it's like, well, I don't know. So all I knew was there was about 2 or 3 things that I could do to advance this idea. And then maybe if I did those 2 or 3 things, I might figure out 1 or 2 other things. So just kept moving, just kept going. And, if you take the next 2 steps, you'll see where your feet will go for the next 2. And sure enough, here we are.
So it was, you were on one path, that path got blocked. So you kind of took the uncharted path a little bit, right? You had some infrastructure in place that you were going to piggyback off of.
Right.
Now, I mean, in hindsight, do you think that was a blessing or a curse? Because I think what you've done is I mean, if I could guess, maybe what line you're talking about, I think this stuff is better than what I suspect might have been, the line that you were going to go down. So.
Yeah, we won't get into specifics, but no. I'm glad it's, obviously we went from spending a couple of months to now 3.5 years into this Delta-17 thing. So I'm glad that we've gone down this path. Things don't always seem obvious when you start out on a journey, but there's a lot of times you got to pivot, you got to adapt, and you just, whatever you do, you never quit.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been extremely fortunate to just keep pounding on the door, kicking doors in until we found incredible people to team up with, very talented people, talented sculptors, an incredible product design manager, factory development team that is just top of the game, like literally. And so, I mean, we're just a couple of guys. I'm just some kid from the prairies pretending to know something, but fortunately I bumped into the right people, and it's just like, let's just keep making this better and better, and let's not quit till it's at least at the level of GI Joe.
Never give up. Stay till the fight's won.
That's right. On the plains of hesitation lie the blackened bones of countless millions who, being tired, sat to rest, and resting died.
You set him up there. Okay, you knew he was gonna.
All right.
Now, as far as sort of people that you've bumped into and sort of had the blessing of having help, why would you bring Ken on? I've known Ken for a long time. I don't
know. Yeah, it's
look. No. Remember gym class when you had to pick your teams?
Yeah.
If there wasn't a lot of choices, you'd just be like, all right, get over here, stand in nets, don't let anything in. Grab the broken stick in the corner. Don't get in my way. Try not to screw up. And if that person makes one save during the game with the broken stick, then you train them. You say, okay, and then you make 2 saves, then 3. Pretty soon you're passing them the puck or the ball, and then you got to work with them a little. And they just kind of learn the hard way.
Yeah, no, Ken does more than I could describe. He does about 10% of everything. His fingers are in every pie. So it's really hard to say like, oh, just clear cut, like, oh, he's just operations guy, or oh, he's just this or just that. It's he helps me with writing the comic book, the bios, deciding on deco contacts. He sets up all of these interviews and all that stuff. I don't know, without Ken, we wouldn't be here. That's 100% for sure. He found us our product design manager who got us into the same factory as Star Wars Black and different things like that. So we wouldn't have toys. We wouldn't be here. He's an invaluable member of the team. I can't figure out his specific title. But
he's asked me to stop using like gopher, coffee getter.
Yes. Yeah. We don't want to go.
You have to stop using that title. And I'm sitting there. I'm like, yeah, but that's, like, I don't need a fancy, thing on a business card. And he's like, I know, Ken, but we're getting to the point where that might actually matter. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
No, Ken and I have actually chatted
extraordinaire
about that. So that's I know some of the ins and outs. Ken and I have sort of similar situations going on.
I was about to say, what does Adam do for Spiro toys? Can Jason really say Adam is? I mean, I know for a while you were the email answering person, but that sort of landed in your lap when stuff got backed up on the Kickstarter. That was never your permanent role. That was going to be like, do this for 2 months and then we'll clear that headache and then start a new headache for you. So yeah, you're right. You and I are in a similar position between I am the Adam for Delta-17. Whatever Adam is for Spiro, I'm Adam.
Yeah. No, right? Ken does a whole bunch of everything. You're all over the place. So his fingerprints are on everything. And it's without a doubt we wouldn't be here at the level we're at anywhere near without him helping along and adding lots of great ideas and lots of great content and all that stuff. So hats off to him. And
take your hats off, boys. I don't have
no, my hair, dude. It's not going to look good.
Well,
I don't want a hat.
Speaking about being here and being engaged, let's just take a quick peek at the chat. Star is hanging out. Nolan is here. Ostradamus Toys, TJC, Robert's Infinite Realms. There's more. Jeremy Kimberlin is here as well. Ken is doing double duty as per usual. So Brick Something is here, just warming up for later. So let's see. Is there anybody I missed? If I missed you, I apologize. So, and everyone else. Oh, Ray Paz. I see Ray Paz is in there too. So hello everybody and welcome. Hopefully we can entertain you for a little bit. I said to these guys before we went live, you know, you guys, like you said, you did Wilhelm show this morning. You're doing Brick show later today. I'm going to try to avoid some of the questions that I've heard multiple times already. So if there's a question that you guys want to hear that you didn't hear on here, it's very likely that it's either going to be on Wilhelm's show or Brick show. So check those out as well. All right. So you were along a path to sort of pick up a line and sort of adapt it from there. You had to adapt and swerve. But what was your motivation in the first place to create toys? What was the impetus? Like, what was the moment where you're like, you know what, I think I want to make toys as a business? Because everything we kind of hear in the media, at least with the big guys, is that like toys aren't doing well. So what would be the trigger that you went, you know what, if they're not doing well, maybe I can do better?
Yeah, well, I've been creating since I was a kid. 1994, I really started picking up stuff and putting thousands of hours into each project that I would try to, because my employment history has been very creative is an understatement. I've been basically just a laborer or a security officer or different things like that, working with the military, Coast Guard, different things. I always preferred jobs where people would leave me alone so I could just create. That was my ultimate favorite. So working at a surplus store with no customers is like perfect. I love it, right? So I put thousands and thousands of hours into different things, but some of them, you just can't do. Like I wrote a couple of animated films. Well, how are you going to make that? Do you have $30 to $100 million to get this thing made? No.
Right.
Do I want to sell it to some studio so they can just whatever, cut it up, mutilate it, turn it into some piece of crap? It's like, no, I would never do that. So there's piles of stuff over on the shelves over there. There's things waiting in the wings that hopefully will happen one day. But toys, comics, and cartoons have always been my obsession. And I wish to change the direction and the atmosphere for children on this earth and return it to more of a more innocent time, as compared to some of the things that they're experiencing right now with whatever Cardi B and whatever other garbage is out there, right? So
is that part of the motivation to do an O-ring figure versus a more modern sort of manufacturing style?
Well, O-ring would come down to personal preference, I think. I think that the world is ready for O-ring again, not just us fanatics, not just us O-ring people. I've given some of these to my little cousins-in-laws and whatever else, and they play with them for, weeks later, they're still playing primarily with the one or two figures that I gave them. So there's something to the O-ring style. When you do it correctly, it has a good weight to it, a good shine. It's sort of like, I'd liken it to a gold nugget. You don't have to know what gold is, but once you have it in your hand, it's worth something.
Sure.
It's different, right? So modern construction, I love a lot of modern construction. I have a ton of stuff here, classified. I buy every classified that comes out, even the dumb, some of the ones that shouldn't be bought. It's like, I can't stop myself. They're, I have to, right? But when I open them, I'm kind of like, yay, it's not like if I was ever to, I don't know, get some rare G.I. Joe or just some regular G.I. Joe. I just add another Techno Viper. It's like, wow, there's something different about how they constructed stuff back then. It's more resilient. It's stronger. It has that inherent value that you don't need anyone to explain it to you. You just know it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I mean, I have, my vintage Joes that are sort of on the display shelf, but I also have vintage Joes that are sort of the play ones that I'm not as worried about. And they just seem easier to play with for kids. Like we talk sometimes about like, oh wow, the articulation scheme in this new modern figure is amazing. It's so much better than the old toys, but I pick up an action figure, a Marvel Legends that my kids have played with, and the arms are backwards and the legs crooked, and like and it's not because they did that on purpose. It's just because the articulation is so complicated that it kind of gets confusing.
Yeah.
With the O-ring stuff, I mean, you have less points of articulation, but it's kind of easier to play with them. Like I feel like we learned how to pose modern action figures because we had the luxury of O-ring figures and 5 POA figures and stuff back when we were kids. So I love it, and I've heard that the crazy thing is a lot of the independent toy lines that I've talked to creators of the independent toy lines. A lot of them have a similar thing where they say I wanted it to feel more like toys when we were kids.
Yeah.
So I think it's cool. I mean that now we're as we're adults with kids, some of us, right? Like we're coming to this place where we get to make the rules, right? We don't have to rely on the big guys to give us the latest and greatest. We can go back to what we still think is the greatest, even if it's not technically the latest.
Yeah.
So, super cool. Love it.
Yeah, to add to that, I mean, Steve, you remember when we first talked about Delta-17? I mean, you've been working on it for a few months by that point in time, but in the summer of 2020, I joined around June, and there was not a lot of O-ring lines at the time. We didn't know about Strike Force Alpha. We didn't know about these other lines. And then as they started to come up, one of the things we asked ourselves was, okay, this is either really bad or really good. Like it's either competition or it's allies. And as we got to know people, like I knew Matthew LaCroix because he did the Once a Man Cobra Commander. Steve, you already knew Troy from the Call Sign Longbow team. Both of us knew and have met Darren Howlett in person from the Legends of the Hidden Force. And then the Skeletron guys have a little bit of O-ring. And of course, Carson, he's, the man. And we thought, like, as we started to read the market a bit better, we're like, you know what, though? Everyone's going to do things a bit different. Everyone's going to cherry pick. And there's going to be like when G.I. Joe got really like I'm working on history of G.I. Joe 87 right now. There was something like 41 figures in that wave in 87. And I think by 89, there was 50 figures. In the 90s, there was even more than 50 figures. And there was all the vehicles on top of that. If you were to add all the wave ones of ours, we probably have over 50 figures. We don't have enough. I mean, Robo Skull being cross compatible between scales, there's not a lot of vehicles in this first wave. In fact, I don't think there's any. So all we're doing is we're reliving G.I. Joe in 1989 or whatever it is. Right. Yep. So we realized that, hey, the collector market really wants this. And if we can kind of reach back to get some kids, and I know our figures are rated for 14 plus because we didn't do the sharpness testing or the drop testing.
Sure, yeah.
But who knows if that'll change in future waves, right? Because we're nowhere near being able to put this in big box store yet, right?
Yeah,
big box stores. But if we get to that point, and we can be like hanging not where the electronic section is, but where the toy section is, then maybe we'll pay for the pricey test at that point in time. But that's neither here nor there right now. At this point, we're sort of reliving the glory days of the peak of a real American hero.
I always wonder if like, an 86 G.I. Joe would pass those tests now. I bet they wouldn't.
I know.
They'd be 14. They'd be like 14 plus 2, I think. So I don't know. Kids are, or the rating is too soft now, I think. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. How was the whole process? Did you anticipate that it would take as long as it did? Did you think it might be quicker? Were there speed bumps that you didn't predict would take 3 months to sort of get through? Or was everything
lots of speed bumps? Well, I mean, the main thing was we wanted our figures to look a certain way, so we went through a handful of sculptors, which is slows you down and is expensive, and we had to let some go. I think maybe 5 or 6 of them. Until we found somebody that matched what we were looking for. Now, these people, keep in mind, they're incredibly talented people.
Yeah.
But they work mostly in the modern realm. One guy was a video game designer. He's fantastic there. One guy's a Transformers designer. They're incredibly skilled people, right? But they just didn't match what we wanted for Delta to look like,
Sure.
the old G.I. Joe. So,
Mhm.
we'd get 2 months in, and then we'd have to be like, shoot, I think we have to take a different direction.
We pay them for their time, but then we couldn't use the sculpt at the end, which was very difficult and a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah.
And I remember telling Steve, maybe we should just go with this and not waste the money. And he's like, yeah, but if it's not going, like, think 5 years down the road, Ken.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, yeah, if we're not gonna, if we can't make this sculpt work, then we may as well waste a little bit up front to save a lot more on the back end. Tommy told me, Steve, that like you pushed him harder than he expected, but he learned through it, even though he was already experienced, and was actually really grateful for you sort of testing him on that.
He put out incredible work, and him and Jesse did 2 of our figures. I was really impressed with his work, really incredible work as well. But yeah, Tommy, he did 9 of the figures. So we have 12 figures, but one's a repaint. So really we only have 11 sculpts.
Mhm.
But yeah, incredible work. But he's another guy that was just in the modern realm, but he was able to, like, I shipped him out a box of about 50 figures of G.I. Joes.
Right.
And I just said, just absorb these guys, just stare at them, play with them, for weeks if you have to before getting started, because you really need to understand, the way they were made. So what we want to do is we want to take that type of look, and then we want to turn the dial up maybe 10, maybe 20%, right? Give it more detail, give it more, stack on more pouches, etc. Make the accessories a bit more clever and innovative and different things. But we don't want to leave that realm. We just want to push that border gently and lead people, because we don't want to really, we have swivel wrists, but we don't want to get into the articulated ankles and different things, because then we're back to modern.
Yeah.
And I just don't want to go there.
That swivel wrist is a game changer. I'll be honest. I mean, the fact that you can get, this pose, you can get him to hold a weapon like that. Compared to, having to just fake it with the old vintage stuff is awesome. And they're just a ton of fun to play with.
Yeah, you can get the guy to hold the forward grip on the gun. So whenever they have a forward grip, it actually works to get both hands on there. So that's nice.
Yeah, awesome. Now to that point, let me just go ahead and bring up the screen here. We'll see. StreamYard was not letting me share anything. Oh, it's working today. Okay, good. So the Delta-17 website, I got the link down below there. So this is the go-to spot for sort of all your Delta-17 stuff. Really, I wanted to take a look at the figures. Now, before we do, do you want to speak, Steve, a little bit to, what you're like, where you sort of came up with Retrograd, Delta-17, and Dark Shadows as far as, the factions go?
Well, obviously Delta-17 is our good guys. There'll be some international guys in there, but mostly it's American-centric. Retrograd, we all grew up with Russia being the big, evil, spooky guys under the bed. So it was hard to leave them behind. I still really appreciate the lore and the history and everything that they represent. But we wanted to do something a little bit different, so that's where Dark Shadows came in. We put them as the head of the beast. So they're the head of the snake, so to speak. And the leader of the Dark Shadows is this mysterious sort of samurai themed Japanese dude, and he builds tons of these robots, and so he's really quite techy. We'll see more of his tech ability in the future with possible different robots and different things like that, as well as, of course, more Retrograd and more Delta-17 figures. But we wanted to give it a bit of a twist, something different. So I thought Japanese technological angle would be interesting, because Japan is so fascinating when you study their samurai and their history of their clans and all that stuff and their traditions to this day. I don't see them necessarily as being an evil bunch, but it was fun to put, you know, one guy as their head of the evil empire.
Mm-hmm. And then sort of within that faction, you also get Jaguar the assassin, as well as the Okami, the enemy robot ninjas, which I think was sort of a really cool mix. To me, it felt like it felt like an evolved version of like the G.I. Joe Bat, where you know that thing is sort of disposable, but these things seem a little more high tech, a little more high functioning, a little more not self-aware, but you know the AI in this thing it seems to me like an upgrade over anything that we'd seen before.
Yeah, they're going to be a bit harder to kill and a bit more skilled. They won't just walk towards you going pew pew.
Yeah, exactly.
So
now those are the three in the Dark Shadows. Then we'll take a quick look at the Retrograd figures. We've got Death Sparrow, the enemy Retrograd leader, who seems to be a fan favorite from what I've gathered. From when I
just ask Hans Chow.
Yeah, exactly. And then the Thunder Battalion, which is sort of the troop builder in this faction. Now both enemy factions have a troop builder. The Delta-17 has a troop builder as well. Was that a conscious thing, like from the start? Were you aware that you were going to have a troop builder for every army?
Yeah, that was the goal. You know, we wanted to come in big like a gorilla on bath salts, right? And so I hope that we've done that to an extent. So, you know, it was like 12 figures in wave one, you know, holy cow, right? And then to even up it with, let's do 2 females out of that 12, and then even up it further with like 3 army builders. We almost got our 4th army builder in, but we missed that window. He's a bit more complicated. It's a bit of a teaser. He'll be more complicated than your regular figure, but he's almost done now in the sculpting phase only. So he'll be revealed at Joe Fest 2024, and then I don't know, and we'll see him come out of the factory, hopefully not too far after that. So we're dubbing him as a wave 1.5 figure, and then wave 2 is in the works as far as on paper. So
we'll get to that, but let's quickly take a look at the Delta-17 cast of characters that we've got so far. And then I'm going to ask you guys what your favorite figure is. Although I know, you know, I suspect it's probably going to be like picking your favorite child, right? Like there's going to be aspects of everyone. So we've got the Delta-17 leader, which is Shepard. Then we've got Preacher, who I believe Preacher and Rooster are larger. They're a little bit taller. If that's is that correct?
4-inch buck
versus a 375. Okay. And then Leonidas, who of course comes with the pop on the that fits on the backpack, as well as the water bowl that clips on the backpack, which I think is an absolutely inspired design there. And then Kestrel, which is Kestrel as popular? Like, are people sort of gravitating to her as much as they are to Death Sparrow, or is she a bit of the sleeper?
I think she's going to be a sleeper hit. There are people who are kind of like, Kestrel, and then they get her in hand and they're like, you know what? I can't stop looking at her. She's just great, you know. I was a bit worried that she might turn into a bit of a peg warmer, but she's got that spice to her, that snap that you're not going to be able to leave her out of your lineup. It's I'll leave it at that. But Death Sparrow is dialed, that black with all the brown belts and stuff.
People are really liking the beret on it.
Yeah,
on Kestrel.
On Kestrel, yeah. They're like some people are saying in their head canon it's Flint and Lady J's offspring. So I guess I guess it's Marissa Fairborn's sister. I don't know.
Sure. Yeah. And then of course we've got the troop builder, the Delta Squad, which is one of the figures that I got, and it's fantastic.
Thanks.
You know, in hand, these things are everything that you're saying, right? Like everything you were hoping to accomplish I genuinely think you did accomplish. I mean, the figures are great. The factions are well thought out. The lore seems like it's going to be good. I can't wait to get the book. You've got the comic book coming, of course. So very much looking forward to that. Now, put you on the spot. Do you have a favorite figure?
Yeah, I've got like about 5 that tie for number 1, and then probably another 5 that tie for number 2. It's really hard because as soon as I think that there's one that I'm not too concerned with, then I'll pick that person up on their own and I'll just kind of stare at it for a bit, and it's like, wow, like this is a lot better than I kind of think it is. Like, I really appreciate it. Like, you know, I don't know, don't want to say any examples, but there's a few here that aren't my favorite because it's not so much my style. Like, I'm sort of a true blue military guy. Sure. Right. But then so some of them are a bit more science fiction-y, fantasy kind of based, but as soon as I pick those up and I just start, it's like, wow, this is so well done. The sculptors did such a fantastic job. And I just end up loving them all over again. So I don't think there's any really that, I don't know. Yeah, my top number 1 spot, there's probably 5, maybe even 6 in there that I just can't nail it down. I don't know about you, Ken. Do you have a clear cut?
Yeah, just make sure the audio is okay, because I've been having some audio issues lately. But let me know.
It's fine on my end, but go ahead, okay.
He's stuck in a time warp.
I think he froze up because he doesn't want to answer the question. So we'll just we'll let him sort that out.
Like a politician. Huh?
Brick said his sound is good now. Yeah, no more echo, but yeah. he's gone.
No,
yeah, I mean the details on these, like you're absolutely right.
Shepherd.
Every time. Oh, okay, he's back. Now he's back. We lost you there for a second. Shepherd, is that what you?
Yeah. But sometimes it changes, right? Like, I look at Preacher, I look at Rooster, I'm like, oh, these guys are so, different figures pop out for different reasons. For me, the one that I actually found the most underwhelming was actually Jaguar. And then some people said, dude, Jaguar is the best. Like, Oz loves Jaguar. Another one of our Canadian friends loves Jaguar. So it's like, okay, the figure I thought was the weakest, a lot of people feel is like a top 2 figure for them. So,
right.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Steve.
Oh, I was just going to say, sometimes what I try to do is I try to pop one in my pocket and just have it with me everywhere I go. And sometimes I pick out the weakest one that I think, I put in my pocket and just carry it around throughout the day. And as I look at it, I'm like, this is really great. Like, I really, really like this guy. I don't know what, so I think with the comic, you'll see that they're all important. I think that once you get them in hand, you'll see that they're really good quality. I don't think there's any need to exclude any of them, but that's ultimately up to the buyer. I don't want to try to, force them into any corner or anything like that.
No, that's and Wilhelm says, I really love the additional sculpted details on the figures. Lots of great details you notice every time you pick one up, and that's exactly what I was going to say. That every time I pick it up, I notice another sculpted detail or another little paint app or something like that. And I mean, this, the Troop Builder is just a green shirt, but there's so much going on. There's so much attention to detail. Like everything that you guys did with the backpack in terms of the fact that he can carry everything. Even that detail alone is pretty cool. But then, like, you look at the Okami, the other character that I have, and I mean the paint apps, on the leg with the throwing stars and the sai, and just adding texture where you didn't have to really. Like, the detail would have been there even if you didn't add the paint app or if you didn't sculpt, texture to a strap or something like that. So you guys, like I said, have really, really nailed this stuff, and I'm very, very impressed. Now, you mentioned future plans, future waves, and I'm curious. You've got, wave 1.5 is sort of getting close. Wave 2 is coming along nicely. How many waves have you sort of got planned out? Are you going to continue sort of, is 12 figures per wave sort of the goal? Do you have sort of a roadmap? Is it going to be one wave every 6 months or every year or anything like that? What's sort of the future of Delta-17?
Well, there's no way we can hit the 6-month mark. I would love to do the 1-year mark, but we're going to have to expand our team. And for now, like Wave 1 just came in, and we really have to prove ourselves in sales before we can, we will continue with sculpting as we sell Wave 1. So we're going to keep the sculptors busy, but we won't tool up for at least another 6. We won't start tooling anything for at least another 6 months beyond the Wave 1.5 figure. That one's just going to be pushed into production.
That's a single figure?
Yes.
That's a single figure. It's a more complex figure.
Yeah, more parts involved in that special figure. Yeah. In a perfect world, it would have been in Wave 1. But
are we talking about like a deluxe figure? Is that is that stigmatized too much?
You can put it that way.
Okay.
Put it that way. That's the closest description to it. It's a deluxe figure.
And is that why it didn't fit into Wave 1, or was it just Wave 12 figures seemed like a good balance? Or do you want to speak to that? Or
we had to hit the ground and actually get the tires, rubber meeting the road at some point, because with me, I could revise everything till the end of time. I love perfection, and I love pushing myself and other people to go higher, better. But at some point, it's like, hey, you have to take it out of park and drive, right?
Right.
So
I've heard the expression, and I'm probably going to butcher it, but like perfection is the enemy of good, right? Like if you just never put something out, then it's irrelevant how good it is or how perfect it could be. So
you could even say perfection is the enemy of possible, because you just can't get anything done.
Sure, absolutely.
So,
you couldn't. It's a concept more than it is sort of an actual achievable goal.
Yeah, it's like basically when your friends, I don't get high, but when my friends get high and they talk about the perfect world and how to solve absolutely everything, and you just sit there and you're like, oh, geez, you just have to walk away, because it's like that. It's just a concept, right? And nothing actually ever happens until. But anyways, beating that horse.
Yeah, Inutabi says these look great, and Chad says they're even better in hand, and I agree.
Thanks, Chad.
I think so. The pictures that are currently on the website where they're showing the figures, are those Paint Masters or those like pre-production?
Yeah, we have to get those updated. Yeah,
I've sent the webmaster.
They look even better than those.
I've sent the webmaster the updated photos, almost everything. So he's got to get those done.
Cool.
But he's not in a super duper rush, because the store, it's not like the web store is quite ready yet. But so
I mean, I think it looks great. You guys, full disclosure, you guys let me sort of check it out and beta test it. So
we needed a Canadian beta test for the site, and that's why Adam has 2 figures right now.
Ken has one Canadian friend. It's me, so I was lucky enough to get in.
More like Ryan Dole didn't pick up the phone. He said
that's
Christmas.
Yeah,
it's Christmas.
I know who you called first, and probably who you called second. I was probably
and then Mega J was
happened
like
to be awake at 11 p.m.
That's right. That's right. I'm like, hey, can you beta test this? Can you beta test something for us and see if it works? He sent it. I'm like, oh well, hold on. I forgot to send you the promo code, so you paid full price, and you're just like, whatever.
Yeah, I didn't care.
Yeah.
I was just happy to get them early. I did pay full price. You messaged me, or you're like, "Are you okay paying that shipping?" And I was like, "Yeah, I placed the order. It's done. I don't care." And I'm happy that I did. They're, like I said, they're great.
Yeah, I was still typing to you when you placed the order.
You asked me to place an order, so I did.
Yeah, you're like, okay, be right back. I'm still typing about what to. Oh, okay, you already did it.
Yeah, I was like, you were distracting me while I was trying to decide which figures to buy.
Yeah, I know.
Now, so you've got future lines planned out for the O-ring. Any plans to sort of go beyond that? I know that Delta-17 is the line, but you're also 5x5 toys. So is there plans to do another line? Would you do a modern line, a 6-inch line?
Maybe.
I should have posed these all separately, but anyway.
There, we're done. Okay.
No, yeah, exactly. Moving on.
Your time.
Sorry.
No, I mean, you did answer all my questions. So
yeah, we're done. Yeah, exactly. Interview over. No, Delta, we want to continue with waves. I would love to do more than 12 per wave. We have to see who we can have and if we can keep up and all that different stuff. There is another toy line coming. It won't be related to this one, though. It'll probably fall under a different corporation that we'll have to create. And it'll be a girls line for little girls. It'll go into all the testing so that little girls can actually get their hands on it. It's quite interesting. I'm quite fortunate to have, like, I tend to say that these ideas are given to me. So I don't like to think that, whatever, like, even if I have these abilities, I didn't make myself. Okay.
Right.
So
yeah, you sort of get a stroke of genius. It's sort of like when, catch lightning in a bottle kind of thing, right? Because like you said, you had a lot of ideas for decades and they would kind of meander here and there. They sounded good, but then in execution, it was, you couldn't pull it off. And then Delta-17 was kind of the first one where it was like everything sort of lined up.
Everything, doors started to open.
And you're just like, I don't know what I did differently, but it lined up. And then now you have a toy line that we're kind of, I don't know, enjoying the fruits of our labor. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So what else were you saying? Oh, modern. No, I don't want to really get into modern. 6-inch, I wouldn't mind sticking my toe in that pond just to see what happens. I'd probably do Rooster and Death Sparrow, but then people might be like, oh, we're really super into this. You got to keep going. And I'll be like, oh,
Yeah, because you only have so much bandwidth, so much capacity, so much factory availability. Sculptors, because like even pinning down sculptor time for Wave 2, they all are contractors working on other jobs at the moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Well, I know that Tommy would gladly come back to do 6-inch Rooster and Death Sparrow. He'd be like, he'd fit it in. Doesn't matter. He'd do it in the bathroom if he had to, but yeah. 6-inch figures.
Mixed reaction. I mean, we knew that Chad's reaction was
right.
It wouldn't be Chad if all of a sudden he was like, all right, let's go 6-inch. You know what I mean? Like, who hacked your account?
The day Chad starts talking about how much he loves 6-inch, we'll be like, what's going on here? Thanos Copter, when's the Saturday morning cartoon? Like, you're doing the comic book, is that sort of, is that the aspiration, or would you ever consider doing a cartoon?
I'm obsessed with cartoons. I've been writing cartoons for decades now that have, of course, just go into a binder. I've done children's books, different things that, have been submitted and rejected over 50 times. Which is fine. We'll revisit a lot of this stuff in the future. If one thing can fund another thing, we'll continue to go and go. For 6-inch, it would just be something that we would do for fun. I don't think I'd want to pursue it unless we can revolutionize the plastics. I'm not happy with the plastics that, like, I just opened up a Shockwave before coming on, and the design is beautiful. The plastics are problematic. And so we'd have to really revisit the 6-inch and innovate and see what we can do with plastics, and just like, okay, let's start from the bottom up and let's revisit this. Right. So,
is there, going back to the Delta-17 stuff, any more factions in the works? Do you want to answer? I think Ken answered my question. I'm pretty sure that there is, because he knows that you're not going to want to talk about it.
He's gone. Yeah.
The silence, I think, answers that question enough. I don't need to know what they are, but I'm excited to find out if and when you do them. Monty the Python, I think, asked the all-important question. He says, I might have missed it. You didn't. We haven't asked it yet. Is there an actual date these go up for sale online? Has there been a confirmed date?
There is no hard set date. I have a ton of work ahead of me to get these online for sale before the end of January, and we will hit that mark for sure.
And Chad says it's all opinions. He'd be down for 12-inch D17.
No.
Largo said Enter Team 12-inch scale Death Sparrow would be great with Fuzzy Head Joes. That would be great, right?
Let's do Cabbage Patch Delta while we're at it.
Hey, why not, right?
Why not?
And I apologize, Mython the Python. I said Monty. I think I just read that.
Oh.
That was that Monty Python's too much in my brain. So,
Mm.
Mython the Python. My apologies. Now, if anybody else in the chat has any other questions that they would like to ask, feel free to fire them in the chat there. I will be happy to ask them. Was there anything else that you guys wanted to add? I've kind of gone through the bulk of my questions, so I don't want to sort of rush and sort of end this. What's been the highlight of the whole process so far for you, Steve?
Well, let me jump in for a second there first.
No, go ahead.
All right. So one thing we do get asked is like, hey, can we get these in stock right now? What we'd like to do is get our online launched first. One brick and mortar store not far from Steve has them because he was within driving distance. A few brick and mortar stores will get them because we're going to try to reach regions where there's walk-in traffic. After that point, we'll reevaluate if we want to do online with other retailers, right?
Sure.
And at first, Steve was fine with it. I felt a little bad about it at first, but look what Four Horsemen's doing right now with their Rising Suns wave, right? They've got it for now, and then when that closes, then the other e-retailers can open up.
Okay.
So is that a commitment from us? Not necessarily, because we've still got to figure out some logistics on our end before we can fully commit to that one way or the other. But right now, the priority A is get our own shop open to more brick and mortar other than the ones that are just other than the ones we've already sent it to. So yeah.
Sure. I mean, I like that approach. I like that you're going to sort of keep it centralized, keep it localized, and then that way, everybody's going to the same source. So. TJC, any Delta-17 game plans? You did mention that you had no, it was just
I mean, if something just sort of, like, first of all, we got to get the comic out on a consistent basis to really build the world, really build the characters, really bring people in to understand just, who they are and why they matter and the, what's at stake. Yes, more females and more international characters for sure. We're going to try to do at least 2 females per wave. That's the minimum, as well as 2 to 4 army builders per wave is the minimum that what we want for each wave. So, with coming out with 3 army builders in wave 1, we really wanted people to have a lot of options. So you can build them big or build them small, whatever you want, but at least there's 12 different figures, right?
Yeah. I mean, even with those 12 figures, that troop build, the Delta-17 troop builder, mask on and mask off, you could effectively have, the 2 skin tones,
multiple options,
and then once you put that mask on, I mean, you could have as many as you want. The eyes are covered too, so
like I have the luxury here of having thousands of boxes at my disposal. So I've ripped open, 20 Delta troopers, and I stuck them all in a tomahawk, and I was like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah.
Right. So, I just moved like about 2,000 miles for our American friends, 2,600 kilometers for Canadians across the country, about, that was the end of November or something like that. So I've barely unpacked. I don't know where half my G.I. Joe vehicles are and all that stuff, but I really want to start playing, but I don't really have time because people want to buy the figures.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
it's a blessing and a curse, right? The blessing is that people are interested. The curse is now you're very busy.
Yes.
Justin Mohan, will we get an all camo wave? He says that character is so cool. He's looking at Rooster.
There is I don't want to answer that.
Fair enough. Moving on. Mython the Python asks, can you talk more on your charity efforts or goals in relation to issues brought to light with the Sound of Freedom?
Sound of Freedom movie, amazing movie. Everyone needs to go see that. Realize the problem is much bigger than we know. This is just the tip of the iceberg. We are uniting with a charity from a guy from my church helped found an orphanage in the Congo, in the DRC. I don't know, maybe 15 years ago. It's a legit place. It's growing slowly. We want to help it grow quicker, add more kids to that place, and
Mm-hmm.
he was discovered by this guy who's been running a child rescue. So these children are rescued from what trafficking, and he's been running this operation in Cambodia, and he's managed to save 700 kids already. So he approached Johan over here and said, can we work with you guys in the Congo to do this as well in the DRC? So we might be able to not only just fund the orphanage, the goal is 10% of all profits to the orphanage. And then if this child rescue thing comes in, we're going to try to up that percentage and really get that going as well. Because if we just live like fat cats and we just live here on this world and we die and we haven't saved people, they're just going to their grave, they're suffering and all this stuff, then just effing shoot me right now. I'm no good to anyone on this earth. So we have to change this world. We have to rescue people. We have to feed the hungry. We have to do these things. Otherwise, what are we?
So buy more figures.
Yes.
Wow. Well, I mean, like, no, I mean it's a noble it's a noble pursuit. That so.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Yeah,
I think
Sorry, I didn't mean to get too intense there.
No, it's fine. Yeah, and I see Hello Dopes in the chat, so just want to shout out to them. And we have like eCollectibles actually reached out as well and started talking to us about potentially carrying stuff. So yeah, and yeah, Steve, this extra initiative that you just talked about is what's going to, like, if for one, you as the founder of the line, really that gives you a lot of peace of mind, knowing you've taken that extra step beyond just the toy world.
Right.
Allows us to like look beyond ourselves, look beyond our own entertainment.
Right? Yeah, and I think to that point too, right? Like I think we live in a world that, as Steve kind of alluded to, is like in terms of getting toys that sort of go back to a more innocent time kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think there's probably a lot of people like me that like to support brands that are being run by people that care, that aren't just trying to cash in. So I mean, I think it's important that message gets. I mean, I think that message is sort of bigger than you or Delta-17 or whatever.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, of course.
Not, but I mean, the fact that you're sort of you're doing it and sort of donating to that and sort of involved in that, I think is important. It's part of the story, right?
Well, we all got to stay. It keeps a person grounded and humble, and I mean, because at the end of the day, we're just all humans, and we have to, we just have to do what we have to do here. We have to help people. Otherwise, I don't know. What good are you? Why should I be given more if I'm just going to hoard it and make my golden throne even higher? It's like, well, that's no good.
Well, on that note, I'm going to change gears because it actually, speaking of thrones, will there be a throne of Delta-17 cases like the one Steve is sitting on at Joe Fest for photo opportunity?
That'd be kind of cool. We're going to have to drive a truck down. Maybe we can. I don't know, but cardboard's kind of an ugly color. I don't know.
I am going to try out the 1/18th Gridiron Throne with Shadow Dragon. Like I've purchased one because I know people always give Gridiron flack for the price of their figures, but that one's closer to $30. So I'm going to see how that works. It's the gun throne that was initially designed for Destro. So. Yeah.
Star asks, at the beginning of the story, do these factions and characters already exist, or do we get to see them?
They do.
They do. Yes. Okay, so we'll be sort of jumping in. And then from there, though, will we get backstories? Will there be sort of flashback stuff? And
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I assumed as much.
I spent a couple months just on flashback, Steve.
Yeah, did very well on it, too. Very well. Ken is a very talented writer. I'm a good writer as well. Ken is fantastic. He comes at it from a different angle. Very surprising, interesting stuff. And together we've been able to shuffle the cards and come up with something that's, I think, has a really, like, I always want to be careful. Like, I love what I'm doing. I'm really confident in it, but I don't want to sound like, we're the greatest, all this bullshit, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what we've come up with is really good, and I think people will enjoy it.
Yeah, no, the figures are fantastic. The sort of the premise of the lore is great, and I can't wait to see where you guys are going to go with the story. I said this before with so many of the lines that I'm into. The figures kind of get me, and the designs I'll be interested in, but it's really the lore that pushes me into being all in on a line.
That's
So
what got you an AWOC, was you
that's
love the comic,
100% what got me
right?
on AWOC.
I read a few of those
Cyberzoic
issues,
too.
right? Yeah, Cyberzoic is another one, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, if people want to, obviously we have the backstory for the characters and for the whole storyline, but at the end of the day, people are still gonna headcanon a few things.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they want to do. That's what they want to do, right?
Yeah.
The Russian characters, everyone is saying that's like an October Guard or an enemy of an October
Sure.
Guard.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, have at it.
Mm-hmm. And Justin Mohan asks, how does it feel that these figures are actually out now?
Well, it's only been a soft launch, so it does feel good. It does feel good.
But to physically have them in hand, right?
Yes.
There's now there's a physical object that has been your sort of focus for Steve, the last 3-4 years kind of thing.
Right.
There's got to be a sense of satisfaction and sort of relief almost that you've got something. It may not be in everybody's hands just yet, but I would say that the hard part is done.
Well, no. But anyways, I mean, that hard part
he's
is
more
done.
scared of the shipping and logistics than he is of the designing, the factory, the tooling, paying for the tooling.
I'd rather do the other hard stuff than just shipping. Sorry, but we'll see what happens. We might drive a whole ton of stuff over to a fulfillment center in a week or two. So
I think that's what's going to have to happen, right?
Yeah. Right. But yeah, so figures in hand, it feels great. I'm one of these guys. I'm a perfectionist. We have to hit a certain level, and until we hit that level, I'm not happy. Mm-hmm. Right. So here's an early Jaguar that was one of our test prints. He's got no shine on him. It was a different style of plastics. It didn't feel like it had enough weight to it. Mm-hmm. It's hard to describe. You'd have to have it in your hand and then have this guy in your hand and be like, oh, okay, I get it. Right.
Right.
But this guy, they sent it out to me and I was like, that's great. Way to go. I couldn't give two craps about it. Mm-hmm. There's obviously potential here, but I was just like, make it better. Right. So we did some different special things to bring in the shine. We improved the plastics. We did a whole bunch of stuff. And now, so this is a finished figure. And now, finally, it's like, okay, now I'm excited. Now I care. This is awesome, right? Mm-hmm. So now I'm in love with it. But if if it would have been left at this, I would have just said, shut down the line. Thank you for your time. Mm-hmm. And we'll try something else.
How close to your, perfection is conceptual, but I mean, how close to your vision do you think the figures that we have in hand are? Like, out of 100%, were you close? Were you 50%? You still feel like there's a ton of potential that you could do things different or better? Or? Yeah,
things can always be dialed. There's a couple things I wasn't too excited about, like Delta Trooper's gas mask is a little bit loose. Mm-hmm. We could have shortened up the side a bit to pull it in a bit tighter. That's something maybe we'll revisit when we do a different color version of him and etc. in the future. As far as how close did we get, these sculptors and the factory production manager and his design team in Hong Kong, they did such a fantastic job. I only come in with so much information as far as 4-sided drawings and different things like that, and then my poor designers, I never leave them alone, right? Tommy's like, so just so this is how I work. I send you this, and then 2 weeks later I'll show you something. I'm like, no, just show me what you got. Mm-hmm. Like, nah, we don't really do that. That's not how the whatever. I won't go on with that one. I don't want to. Anyways, they've been fantastic. They've done incredible work. I would say I am 95% or more happy with what we have. and some of the figures are 98, 99, you know. There's just a couple issues. Yeah, it's because of these highly talented, incredible people that that we were blessed enough to bump into. And you know, Ken found our factory product design manager. I keep calling him factory manager, and that's not really.
I think we can just call him a project manager for short. I mean, I know that's a simplification of his title.
Yeah,
you know?
Your man on the ground.
Yeah, and he's incredible. Like we'd have issues, and I'd be like, "Oh no, we're done. You know, we're slowed down 2 months at least. You know, he found this thing, and oh no." And the next day he'd be like, "Okay, solved it." And you know, the design team in Hong Kong have already altered it. Here's the files, so you can do some, you know, rotations and check it over. I'm like, how did you do that? Like it's incredible. So,
Justin Mohan, have you guys gotten any feedback from other O-ring indie companies like Strikeforce, Alpha, and so on? Did any of them help?
Okay, yeah, I answered part of that question at the bottom there, and the person who put us in touch with the fulfillment center is from Skeletron. So there you go. So I say we're friends with most of those people, but I actually would say we're probably friends with all of those people now that I'm reading that. And you know, some of them have one figure here or one figure there in hand. And we've gotten good feedback. They're like, yeah, this is what it should look like. You know,
I think, you know, just from my sort of limited involvement in the toy industry, what I've very quickly realized is that it's a very small community, and everybody sort of knows everybody or knows of everybody else. So it's and especially with the indie community, everybody wants to help. You know, there isn't a sense. Now, this is my experience. I don't want to speak for you guys, but you know, everybody's like looking at what everybody else is doing, and even if it's not a product that they absolutely love, they're like, they get it, right? They get that this is something that you want to do and that you're gonna do, and everybody's chatting with everybody. You know, how did you do this? Like, how did you do this? Who did you talk to about this? Who are you?
When we talked, I mean,
doing this?
You know, Adam, there's only like 4 or 5 actual like project managers that do the indie stuff. You know, right? There's a couple of the ones you've talked about, and Four Horsemen has their dude who does some stuff for other people as well. You know, like there's only a handful of, and that's why everybody knows everyone, because then what happens? Then they share sculptors. Then they share artists for, you know, for packaging. Right, and then they share distribution facilities. Right.
It's
So and you don't know this when you first get in, and I think some people, you know, they'll do Kickstarters, they won't know this, and then they're like, oh cool, you know so and so, all right, let's make this work.
The text messaging and the phone calls and the video chats, people would be surprised who's talking to because there is no competition, right? Like the big guys are competing against each other, but the small guys just want everybody to succeed. So it's really cool, and I'm happy that it.
You know, if there is a competition, it's a healthy competition. It's like, well, you scored an A, well, I want an A+.
Yeah,
but I'm still going to buy your A product, and maybe my A+ product becomes an A-, and you still buy it anyway. You know what I mean? It's more like that.
Yeah, I've filled up my credit card with all these other lines. You know, it's great because I don't have to do any of the work. I can just enjoy the fruits of someone else's labor. So I'm really excited about all these other lines. You know, I keep up with them every day. I don't think we're really working with any of them per se, outside of what Ken mentioned. But I can't wait, you know, for Longbow to come in, Hidden Force, Recall, all of these guys, Strikeforce Alpha. I want to order more of those. It's fun. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ken.
Oh no, they're because they're outside of our process, right? Like, we kind of know what they're going through because we're largely in the same market. But when they produce something, we don't see the whole thought process. We just see it at the end as a consumer, and then we kind of backwards, like we kind of like go back and think, in order to do this, they would have had to do that, which is probably inspired by this. Hey, that's actually a pretty cool concept. You know, like how many people are excited for the tracksuit henchman on Call Sign Longbow?
Yeah.
Right. You know, it's like, That's brilliant. You know what I mean? I wish we thought of it first, but now we don't have to think of it first.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Well, and that's the beauty of it, right? The sort of this O-ring renaissance. I mean, toy connection. You're always talking about the toy renaissance that we're sort of currently living in, and you guys are a part of it, right? And the O-ring thing is big, right? There's 4, 5, 6 companies, probably ones that I'm forgetting, right? That weren't listed in Justin's list there, where we have this. We went from like nothing, you know, it was famine, and now it's absolutely going to be feast, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But everybody's coming at it from a different angle, right? Everybody's doing something a little bit different. You've got, and I'm going to get them wrong, I think, but like Longbow is sort of like 80s based. You guys are more modern, sort of military and sort of future looking. Then you've got Recall is fan created, you know, it's like it's like the evolution of Steel Brigade. So there's just all these cool things going on, and they're all cool in their own right. You know, that's the other thing is that every
heavy armor toys with their in the Navy army builders, those will slot in anywhere.
Army builders, yeah,
right. So,
what a time to be alive, hey?
What a time to collect. I mean, imagine that.
Now there's too much stuff. That's the problem. Yeah. If there was only one, it would be easy. But there's just so many things to collect. That people are gonna have to pick. I think Delta-17 to me is looking like a pretty good choice as far as, you know, my preferences, my interests. These feel more like you know, what drew me to GI Joe, at least the sort of the near future sort of tech aspect, especially when you get like the Okami Ninja and stuff like that. So
right.
Now I don't have any more questions. There aren't any more questions that I need to cover from the chat. So this feels like a pretty natural spot to finish up. Do you guys want to leave with some last words? Any sort of parting wisdom that you guys want to share, or where can people check you guys out at the moment?
Well, we keep up mostly on Instagram. If we're going to say anything, we'll say it there. A little bit on Facebook. We have a Twitter account, but I never go there.
Yeah, I just posted something on our Facebook. So
okay,
perfect. I didn't even check with you. I just posted it.
Yep, good enough. We hope to have the comic out, you know, in about 2 months, I hope. That's one of the most important aspects. But yeah, if people want, you know, don't freak out. We've got a lot of toys in hand. You don't, you know, pay your bills, feed your kids. But if you want to order a couple, definitely give us a shot, and hopefully you like them and you come back. And we're going to try to come up with some good deals for bundles and different things.
Nice.
And
no collector left behind. I hope I can say it that way. You know, because look at all the feedback in the chat. I certainly don't know everybody in the chat. Yeah, there's a bunch of names that are very familiar, and some have jumped over from Wilhelm's stream, and maybe they'll, you know, we'll see them on future streams as well. But the reality of it is, thank you very much. Yeah, this is for you as well, right? So,
Mython the Python saying Delta-17 is going to be my #1. The figures are amazing, but the cause is the selling point that tugs at my heartstrings the most. Looking forward to everything that you do.
I appreciate that.
Thanks, Mython. God bless, dude.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure, guys. I'm going to turn on my my sort of outro music here, and I will say my thank you to you guys. If you guys want more of these guys, if you haven't had enough, if you were watching Wilhelm and then you've watched this and you still haven't had enough, jump over to Brick Something's channel at 4:30, so just over an hour from now, for a little bit more Delta-17 coverage. I'm sure that's going to be great too. Brick's always fun to talk to.
One of the best.
Thank you guys. I can't wait for more figures. I can't wait for more designs. I really can't wait for the comic book. So as soon as that's out, I'm very much looking forward to that. But in the meantime, looking forward to the website dropping and everybody being able to get these in hand. But thank you guys for joining me. If you were in the chat, appreciate it with the comments in the chat. If you're watching this on replay, appreciate you as well. I will talk to you guys all again very, very soon. Bye.